First is you mentioned the breadth in players as well as trying to get a pulse on trends. Daniel asks, are Twitter, Google good places to find or understand trends within the food space? If so, do you monitor this data to determine market opportunities? If not, what are some other sources of information that you use to identify these opportunities?
That's a great question. So to my earlier point about triangulating different data sources, social is extraordinarily important. We do a lot of social listening where we look at the conversations people are having around food, what are common words that are coming up. We're able to monitor after new brand launches, what are people talking about? So one of the things that's coming up a lot now is whether or not people still care about GMO. And we're actually seeing for plant-based users, the conversation declining, that they care less about it because they're more interested in good food. And that's kind of an unusual perspective. So we're trying to follow that up with other data sources as well. So social is important. We monitor a mix of Google, Google searches, Twitter conversations, in LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm trying to get us to use Reddit a little bit more because Reddit's just harder to monitor because there's so much out there. But I think there's some interesting plant-based conversations happening there. But we triangulate that with actual sales data. So watching what people are actually buying at the register, what they're rebuying, what categories are going up, what categories are going down, brand share. So who's capturing the market. And right now we're very closely watching Beyond versus Impossible, now that Impossible is at retail. And so all those come together to actually give us a better picture of the market. And then last point, every now and then we do big studies ourselves. So big surveys, big focus groups, big interview sessions, just to add some more color to the numbers we're seeing.
And the next sort of theme of questions is asking about the geopolitical landscape and sort of risk and opportunity relating to some big changes. And one student mentions Mexico and a new law passed to put a black label on high sugar fat snacks. Another student mentioned the U.S. election and what that might mean. How do these geopolitical factors come into play in terms of your strategy? How much do you monitor what's going on there, and how much does that impact sort of day-to-day activities?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a point. So I'll start with there's a point where you really can't monitor all the data that's out there. There's a limit. You kind of have to choose data sources that are most relevant to you. And so we have a geo expansion strategy where some regions are closer in and others are further out for a variety of reasons, both market size, regulatory, et cetera. And so we keep an eye on the geographies that are closest in for us. And so to the point about Mexico and in general, Latin America is seeing a lot of growth in plant-based food. And so we watch their labeling laws and we watch their new brands coming up quite closely. And all this to say, like, we're regularly in conversations with the regulators in these countries. So we have a great head of regulatory at Motif who has worked with these people for a long, long time. And also who has an inside line to speak to them saying, okay, what is the perspective these days? How can Motif make sure that we're managing to your expectations? And so it's very much a two-way dialogue. Because the risk is if you don't do that, you come to market and regulatory just shuts you down. And that's a frightening signal to the market. And so we keep an eye on that very closely all the way through.
And so something sort of tying both themes of questions together, what are the specific tools that your organization uses to utilize some of that data, whether from social or to monitor regulatory changes? Do you have any specific tools that you can share with the students?
So social listening, I should say, I don't know what the tool is because we use an external group who does a readout to us. They have specific tools. There's a consulting company that's known for this, and we use them for that. But other tools the best data sources are companies like Nielsen, IRI, Spins. They have point of sales data that's monitored extraordinarily closely and frequently. And so we use those sources as sales sources. Other sources that we use, things like Mintel and Euromonitor have global reach. So Euromonitor has global numbers. Mintel is really good at new products, and so that's great because they have this thing called the global new product database where you're able to track what's new on the market, what claims, like down to what claims are on the packaging. You're able to see what claims are new and exciting. So those are some of the sources that we use. Regulation is interesting because what I've learned is that the food industry is very connected. So it really becomes a network of who you know. And so we're very lucky that our head of regulatory knows everyone in these spaces and can reach out to them. So the other thing I've learned is just food is very incestuous and everyone's connected and everyone has worked together at various points at different companies. And so it becomes a network game as well.